The story begins at a crowded job fair with many people looking for a job. In the middle of the crowd, one of the recruitment booths is completely empty. Two guys talk about how weird it is because finding a job is so hard. At this point, our protagonist looks into the cabin and sees a woman with blue hair sitting there. He then comes closer to read the company name, which looks quite strange. The boy wonders why no one is in line for that particular company. With so many people, a guy next to him complains that it would take days for his turn to come. Everyone around him is desperate for a job and will offer anything to get hired. Even though he finds everything very suspicious, he decides to take a chance and try his luck there. Then the young man steps forward towards the cabin that emits a bluish light, and the moment he passes through the glowing barrier, his body simply disappears. Inside the room, the blue-haired woman notices his arrival and seems to have been expecting him. To outsiders, all you can see is a blue wall protecting the cabin. Once inside the place, the girl asks the candidate to introduce himself briefly. He says his name is Yan Wenhan and starts talking about his qualifications and studies. The interviewer just watches him with a smile as he talks about his qualities, but she changes her stance and asks if the candidate is really a guy dedicated to work. The boy nervously confirms and thinks that his chances are low because of his resume. He remembers how other companies had huge queues of applicants. That's why he thinks it's better to forget about it, because this vacancy isn't even in his field, and he just tried his luck. The recruiter analyzes the young man's resume with a thoughtful look and a slight smile. Suddenly she breaks into a big smile and announces that the young man has been hired for the position. Completely taken by surprise, the protagonist makes a face of unbelievable astonishment. The girl leans across the table and says he is the talent the company has always wanted. He then wonders if he has fallen into some kind of prank or reality show. But the interviewer confirms with a gesture that he is indeed the talent she is looking for. Then she offers a salary of 20,000 plus insurance and paid vacation. The boy is shocked because his field doesn't pay very well, and finding a job is difficult. Seeing his hesitation, the woman wonders if the job offer was too low. She thinks her market research indicated the pay was great for newbies. Meanwhile, the young man is sure that it is a scam and that they will try to sell his organs. So he grabs the chair to escape, but the woman realizes that he is going to escape. With a cold expression, the recruiter looks at him in a very intimidating way. At that moment, the protagonist realizes that there is something very wrong with her gaze. He tries to make up an excuse and says he needs to go because he remembered something else. But suddenly a frightening red aura appears enveloping the environment. With her eyes glowing red, she orders him in a firm voice to sit down. Then, a force pushes him back into the chair, and the boy screams without understanding anything. He panics and wonders why his legs just stopped working. Seeing the woman smile again, he asks her to reconsider and wonders if it's a scam. The recruiter says the salary may seem suspicious, but the company's credentials are real. She explains that they are partners with the state, and the information is available online. Then, the girl shows the cell phone with the company's data to prove that it is all true. Reading the information, he sees that the firm seems legitimate with a very high capital. Even so, the boy wonders why he was chosen since his area is different. The woman says they need someone for a tourism project and to build a facility. With this, the protagonist is relieved because the work is something he understands. She also says that his resume looks sincere and that the company pays very well. But the real reason is that your phone number ends in 880, and you're lucky. The young man agrees, thinking that luck is important for any successful business. The scene then changes to show the large city, where the company appears to be located. Back in the room, he signs the contract and asks if everything isn't happening too quickly. The woman shakes his hand in welcome, and he promises to try hard. She smiles and tells him not to worry about it, just so he doesn't run away later. She has already bought his train ticket, and the boy is shocked at how quickly everything happened. At that moment, the young man realizes that there is no turning back, and he will have to accept The recruiter explains that she used his contract data to buy the ticket. He then says goodbye a little awkwardly, and she tells the boy to go and get ready for the trip. Leaving the room, he returns to the crowd, while the woman watches him go. From afar, we see a red glow in his eye. His contract had a very strange clause that said it was a permanent agreement. The next day, the boy was already at the city's train station ready to travel. He calls his parents but lies about his salary so as not to raise too much suspicion. His mother is super happy with the news and encourages him to do his best at work. Looking at the panel, he sees that his final destination is the Unbreakable Valley Station. The young man finds it all very specific and feels like he's in a movie. The train journey would be long with a total duration of approximately 8 hours. Then he settles into his chair and puts on an eye mask to take a peaceful nap. The train travels through the night while he sleeps the entire way. He wakes up to the announcement that they are arriving at their final destination. The boy stretches sleepily and prepares to finally disembark. Arriving at the station, he realizes that the place is very busy and seems very expensive. And the strangest thing is that everyone around him wore very different and exotic clothes. He finally arrived at Unbreakable Station, and now he just needed to find his contact. The boy gets a little lost and wonders who from the company would come and pick him up there. Not far away, someone looked at his photo and recognized him in the crowd. In an instant, a girl starts running quickly towards the protagonist. He continues observing the people around him without noticing her approach. Suddenly, the girl jumps on top of him and hugs him very tightly and enthusiastically. The embarrassed young man thinks that the company culture is very lively. He tries to hold on tight to the hug, thinking that college prepared him for this. The boy says she's being a little too lively, and he can barely breathe. To calm himself down, the young man begins to recite the periodic table in his mind. The girl releases him and celebrates that the master managed to trick someone into being their babysitter. After recovering, the protagonist introduces himself and asks the girl's name. She introduces herself as Yushin, but says he can call her Little Fish. The girl smiles and jokes that the nickname is like the fish that cats love to eat. With a serious expression, he agrees to call her Pexinho and hopes they work well. Then, the two shake hands, and the girl assures that their partnership will be great. The new colleague says that the master asked her to take him to the company. The boy finds the titles of Master and Older Brother strange, like in anime. He imagines that in a cultural company, everyone should like anime and cosplay. The protagonist notices that the texture of her cat ears looks surprisingly good. While he wonders how the ears are attached, she takes out the key to a scooter. The young man is impressed by the golden motorcycle and asks if it was custom-made. The girl explains that she doesn't have a driver's license, so they will have to go by scooter. He replies that he doesn't mind and that he can enjoy the view of the city on the way. The boy cries with joy, thinking how lucky he is to have such a kind classmate. With a smile on her face, the girl calls him so they can finally leave. Pixinho gets on the bike and tells him to get on the back. He doesn't even think and happily agrees. He climbs on the back of the bike, and the two of them set off at high speed through the city streets. The boy thinks that getting a ride from a girl is a very different experience. At this point, he doesn't know where to hold on and is embarrassed to put his hand on her waist. The girl notices his hesitation and asks why he isn't holding on to her. She then warns him that he better hold on tight as they are about to fly away, but the young man boasts that he has great balance and doesn't need to worry. But he gets scared when she finishes, saying that they are going to fly to the mountains. And suddenly the scooter takes off towards the sky, leaving a trail of light. The protagonist screams in despair and asks what those particles of light were. In a panic, he remembers that she spoke of the mountains and fears for his organs. He imagines a scary guy ready to do evil to him and cries in fear. Meanwhile, Pixinho seems to be very amused by her colleague's panicked reaction. Desperate, the boy decides that his only chance of survival is to jump from there. Then he counts down before finally jumping off the bike. The boy jumps and for a moment believes he has successfully escaped. But to his complete surprise, He ends up holding the girl in his arms in mid-air. She winks and says that the master warned him, that he might try to escape on the way. Pak Sin-ho holds him, says there is no way to escape, because they are far from everything. Hopelessly, he begs her to spare at least one of his kidneys. The girl then lands, but still continues charging through the sky towards a forest. Pak Sin-ho is confused and wonders what he means by kidneys. The boy cries and begs for mercy, asking her to leave at least one. She says it's a misunderstanding and warns him not to try to run away again. He swears he won't run anymore and asks the girl to put him down. At that moment, the girl lets go of him, and he falls face down on the grass, complaining of pain. With a smile, Pak Sin-ho tells him to keep his promise not to escape, but the young man thinks she is naive, and that this is the perfect chance to escape. So with a fake smile, he catches the attention of his new coworker. The protagonist points to the sky and shouts that there is a flying pig passing by. While the girl is distracted looking for the animal, he runs off at a run. The boy runs through life screaming that his organs need to stay with him. Pak Sin-ho turns around and says he doesn't see any pigs in the sky. At that moment, she realizes that the new employee has disappeared and is surprised. The girl is furious when she realizes that he lied and dared to deceive her. Running, he shouts to the girl that she is too innocent for this job. He knows that on the road her electric scooter would easily catch up with him. That's why the young man decides to jump into the woods to make the chase more difficult. But suddenly, Pak Sin-ho appears in the air and gives him a powerful kick. The blow hits him hard, and all he can think about is the fate of his kidneys. A pink screen appears, saying that a system has been activated. Because of the attack, the boy is shocked by what just happened, and the screen in front of him, he sees a glowing pink panel floating that says a system has been activated. The screen shows Pak Sin-ho's data, revealing that she is from the Spirit Cat clan. The young man is dizzy from the blow and thinks the girl was too quick and merciless. Fallen to the ground, the girl worries that she hit him on the head too hard. The scene then changes to a large, luxurious house with a very traditional style. He wakes up in bed and sees the blue-haired recruiter sitting in a chair. With a severe headache, the protagonist tries to understand where he is now. The woman notices that he has woken up and asks if the new employee is feeling okay. She watches him calmly wearing different clothes and holding a long pipe. The boy is surprised to see her, and the character system appears again. The screen shows that she is the master of the valley and that she does not pay salaries on time. He panics when he reads the part about the delayed salaries and is shocked. The young man regrets having ended up in another world to become a slave. The woman asks if he didn't learn about labor rights in the training. She then decides to cut to the chase and reveals that they are reclusive cultivators. The master explains that they cannot use magic in the human world so as not to be seen. She guarantees that the company is legitimate and that his life is completely safe there. The boss says the benefits are real, but the boy remains suspicious of everything. To prove it, the girl remembers that the company's data is available on the internet. Still lying down, the boy is watched by the blue-haired woman who is smoking calmly. With wide eyes, the protagonist seems completely shocked by the situation. At that moment, he remembers the system that was activated right at the time of the attack. Then the screen showed Pak Sin-ho's data and that she belonged to the Spirit Cat's clan. With blurred vision, he remembers how the girl was quick and showed no mercy. The girl then worries that perhaps her kick was too strong. That place was actually a huge mansion with a very traditional appearance. He laments to his mother in his thoughts because he has become a slave in another world. The boy puts his hand on his head, trying to ease the pain and understand what happened. At that moment, his boss notices his movement and asks if the boy has finally woken up. The recruiter looked at him with an air of superiority and a stylish pipe in her hand. Upon recognizing the woman, the boy is surprised and the system screen appears again. This time, the system reveals that his boss doesn't usually pay salaries on time. The young man does not believe what he read and becomes desperate at the idea of not receiving. The woman then says that the company's information is public for anyone to see. With a mocking air, the boss asks if he didn't learn about rights in college. She ignores the boy's confusion and reveals that everyone there is a reclusive cultivator. Their new boss says they can't use magic in the normal world, so they don't get caught. The girl also guarantees that the firm is serious and that his life is not in any danger. She confirms the benefits, but the young man still thinks it's all very strange. The boy wonders if they call him Big Brother because he is the oldest in the group. He decides to check the system so he doesn't forget the names and makes a good impression. The screen shows the little fish with cat ears and his boss who likes to smoke. With that, the young man gets all excited and feels like a protagonist in a novel. He imagines himself saving the world and facing enemies to become stronger. He also fantasizes about getting rich and having lots of pretty girls around him. The boy gets lost in his thoughts and starts drooling with excitement, but his boss looks at him with a scary aura and asks what he is thinking about. At that moment, the boy looks away and realizes that her clothes are very tight. Relaxed, the woman asks him to bring her a lighter and a beer from the fridge. He agrees but wonders how the boss just showed up there without making a sound. Opening the refrigerator, he thinks about how the girl's posture was very imposing. Then the young man takes the bottle and takes it to his boss, who was waiting patiently for him. The woman uses the pipe to open the beer bottle with one quick movement, and she starts drinking early in the morning, leaving the boy surprised by the scene. After drinking, the boss orders the boy to light her pipe immediately. The boy doesn't understand and repeats her words, completely confused. Even without knowing how, he tries to light the pipe with a match right at the end. Suddenly, the girl becomes serious and warns that someone is approaching the place. Then several purple snakes with glowing eyes appear on the ground in a frightening way. Then the purple snakes wrap themselves around the feet of someone who has just arrived at the location. And then a woman with pink hair appears in the middle of the snakes and introduces herself. The protagonist is startled by her arrival and by one of the snakes near him. The pink-haired girl kneels down and calls the boss master with respect. The guy gets annoyed and wonders if there's a cosplay competition there. But suddenly another woman with a black dress and light blue hair appears there. She wears a very elegant black dress with details on the back. The new girl had a very cold look and a serious and imposing posture. She then introduces herself as the fourth youngest sister of that mysterious valley. Just like the other girl, she also kneels as a sign of respect to her teacher. The system reveals that the pink-haired girl is an ancient poison spirit. The other girl was a demon empress who was betrayed in her past life. The boy is shocked to discover that they are a spirit and an empress. He tries to say that there are nice people there, but the boss looks at him without interest. But suddenly a man with black hair appears, and the girls greet him. With a smile on his face, the newcomer waves to everyone in a very stylish way. The system identifies him as an immortal of the sword, and the protagonist himself. Our hero is blinded by so much brightness, and complains that the other one looks like the hero. Even so, he greets him and says that from now on they are brothers. The new colleague smiles and tells the boy to call him whenever he needs something. The protagonist thinks that the sword immortal seems like a very nice guy. Just then, Pixino appears bringing a tray of tea for her boss to drink. Seeing the scene, he cries with relief and thinks that the cat girl is the most normal one there. The boss then tells everyone to introduce themselves without delay so as not to waste time. The boy's cheeks are full because everyone's presentation is impressive. When it's his turn, he clears his throat to prepare himself and make a good impression. The young man proudly introduces himself, saying that he is a native and the eldest son. After that, Pixino guides him through a corridor and explains about his room. She takes his hand and says that she will now take him to his final room. The boy smiles in relief, thinking that his coworker is quite normal after all. The girl then opens the door and enthusiastically shows him his new room. He is impressed because the place is a complete and very well-kept apartment. With a smile, the girl celebrates that they will live together from now on. He happily agrees and the two promise to help each other and count on each other. The young man then remembers to ask what his tasks will be and what he will do. In this, he remembers that the boss told everyone to leave without doing anything all day. Peixino says that he will soon know what to do and asks to exchange contacts. Then, they bring their phones closer to add each other and join the group. The boy sees the name of the group and finds it very strange and makes no sense. She explains with a smile that it is the boss's group and that the notices will be posted there. Lying in bed, the boy analyzes the system and remembers his colleague who is a spirit. He thinks about how everyone there has incredible, otherworldly pasts. The young man then wonders what use the system is if it's just for viewing profiles. With so many powerful people, he feels like a nobody in a cliché story. The boy imagines that this skill would be perfect for working in human resources. But suddenly a notification appears on the holographic screen in front of you. The system warns that with 5 profiles, the familiarity system has been released. He understands that if he increases affection with them, he will be able to use his abilities. So the guy looks at the profiles and tries to decide who he will start interacting with. With a determined look, he points to the screen and chooses his first target. The chosen one was Peixino, the girl with cat ears who picked him up at the station. With a confident smile, he says he will start with his new little sister. He thinks the girl seems to be the easiest to approach and befriend. Excited about his plan, the protagonist jumps out of bed ready to start acting. In front of the mirror, he rehearses some pick-up lines but thinks they are too cheesy. So the boy tries another approach and pretends to be sick to get attention. He continues the scene saying that the disease is love sickness because of her. The guy cringes in embarrassment and thinks the internet videos have ruined him, so he decides to be normal and try to talk or look at the stars with her. Already dressed, he finds the door to her room and celebrates finding her. In front of the door, he introduces himself and says he would like to get to know her better. But since there is no answer, he wonders if she went out to train at night. He decides to leave, but when he turns around, he comes face to face with the demon empress. The two get very close, and the boy is embarrassed by the situation. At that moment, the protagonist lets out a desperate scream of pure fear. Without warning, the woman grabs him by the mouth and presses him against the wall. She stares at him with a cold, menacing gaze, ready to attack. With his mouth covered, he tries to identify himself as his older brother, crying. The young man despairs because his life is at risk before it even begins. Then the woman's hand glows with a very powerful and dangerous purple aura. He is already preparing to die and wonders if he will be reincarnated again. It turns out the girl had just come back from somewhere quite hurt. She even left a trail of blood down the hallway she walked through. With a serious face, the woman seemed to have come out of a very intense fight. So, she went to the bathroom to wash her hands, which were covered in blood. And when he left, he came face to face with the boy and attacked him out of pure defensive instinct. With a quick movement, the demon empress throws him to the ground violently. She covers his mouth again as he cries and tries to explain himself. The woman prepares another attack, with her hand shining in his direction. But the protagonist screams with all his might for her to stop the attack. Just then, Peixino opens the door and tells the 4th sister to wait. She quickly explains that the young man is their new senior brother, not an enemy. The Empress looks skeptical, while the protagonist cries, completely terrified. She ignores the plea and steps on his hand with her heel, telling him not to move. Then she pins him to the wall, asking why his back looks so much like her enemy's. In tears, he stammers that he doesn't know, and maybe he just has a common silhouette. The woman's glare intensifies as she asks if he is also someone who was reborn. He frantically denies it, insisting he's an ordinary human and their new senior brother. Unconvinced, she asks why he came to the valley, accusing him of sowing discord. While Peixino insists it's a misunderstanding, he screams that he also wants answers. The cat girl gets between them, telling the Empress to let him go because he can't breathe. But the woman recalls past deceptions, refusing to believe it is all a coincidence. The youth breaks down, complaining that he was tricked into an indefinite contract. Paek Sin-ho confirms his story, revealing that he even tried jumping off the scooter to escape. The Empress finally lets go but warns that she will keep a close eye on him from now on. As she walks away, he wonders what her problem is, still shaken by the encounter. At that moment, a notification icon flashes in his vision, signaling a system update. The screen shows his familiarity with young Yui is now at 1, noting her obsession. He finally understands she mistook him for her enemy, which explains her emotional state. As he thinks about this new information, Paek Sin-ho approaches and asks if he is hurt. He touches his neck, momentarily lost in thought after her question, but she suddenly gasps, pointing out a small wound he hadn't noticed. Getting very close to inspect it, her proximity makes him blush and feel flustered. The cat girl then calmly invites him to her room so she can apply some medicinal oil. Her invitation echoes loudly in his mind, leaving him both stunned and excited. He starts imagining scenarios where she might ask him to apply medicine to her leg too. The thought of entering a girl's dormitory for the first time fills him with pure joy. He feels like he's floating with angel wings, completely ecstatic about the situation. With his heart pounding, he follows her down the long, sunlit hallway to her room. She stops at her door and asks why he is standing there in a daze, snapping him out of it. He just stares at the door, still processing that he's about to enter a girl's room. Trying to act cool, he attempts to appear experienced and worldly despite his nervousness. He wonders if her room will be pink and girly, just like the ones he has seen in Manga. The young woman just looks at him, clearly confused by his long and awkward pause. Finally, he steps inside with a confident stride, ready to see her room. But as soon as he looks around, his confident expression turns into one of pure horror. The first thing he sees is a dangerous-looking spiked mace hanging on the wall. Beside it is a menacing double-headed fork, adding to the room's strange decor. He then spots a giant mechanical umbrella, making him wonder if this is a girl's room at all. His legs go weak, and he fears she is planning to use these tools to torture him. Paek Sin-ho smiles sweetly, holding a kunai, and asks him not to laugh, saying she just likes organizing. He stares in horror at a wooden box filled with blades and asks why she collects these things. She calmly explains that she plans to gift the collection to her father in the future. The young man feels relieved, thinking it's her father who likes weapons, which seems plausible. But a system notification appears, revealing she has a poor relationship with her father. Seeing her sly smile, he wonders if she was being sarcastic and has a darker side to her personality. She then tells him to sit down so she can apply the medicine, and he nervously agrees. While treating the scratch, she explains that their fourth sister is actually a kind and beautiful person. The cat girl adds that the Empress had a very unlucky past life, so he should be patient with her. Her expression darkens as she says it was all because of a scumbag who tricked the Empress. Getting angry, she crushes the medicine bottle, vowing to kill the man if he was also reborn. He gets startled by her sudden outburst and asks her to talk without scaring him like that. A bit nervously, he then asks if the man who tricked the Empress was her ex-boyfriend. Paek Sin-ho clarifies that the Demon Empress was always too focused on her career for romance. He's relieved it's just a regular enemy, but she says he's lucky before cutting herself off. He quickly insists the wound doesn't hurt, though he thinks he can guess what she was about to say. Suddenly, she brandishes a cleaver with a menacing look, making him fear he's joined a cult. But instead of attacking, she gently places a cute, cat-shaped band-aid on his neck. She beams happily and announces that the treatment is all done, much to his surprise. The protagonist bows deeply in relief and sincerely thanks his fifth junior sister for her help. He turns to leave, wishing his boss good night as he heads down the hallway. Meanwhile, she watches him go with a satisfied smile, commenting on the day's unity. Later, the young man walks through a dark forest, realizing the place is too dangerous. He concludes that the girls are all vicious and decides he must escape immediately. But the thought of the high salary insurance and housing fund makes him hesitate. Still, he questions if he is willing to live with people who might not even be human. He imagines all of his new colleagues as ghostly monsters surrounding him. The fear that they could attack him at any moment fills him with pure dread. He also recalls the hundreds of torture tools that Pixinho keeps in her room. The youth understands that fortune comes with risks, but you need to be alive to enjoy it. He finds his ID card in his pocket, taking it as a sign from fate to leave this place. With his mind made up, he clenches his fist and prepares to make a run for it. Forgetting his luggage and contract, he sprints away, determined to quit this job. He decides to break the contract, feeling he has nothing to lose at this point. But as he runs through the forest, a flock of menacing crows starts circling him. The dark birds seem to follow him, with one even landing on his shoulder as he flees. After running for a long time, he stops in confusion, realizing he is still in the same place. He can still see the city lights, wondering if he has run into a ghostly maze. But he refuses to be defeated and decides he must keep running and not give up. Yelling that he won't give in to this nonsense, he dashes forward with renewed speed. After what feels like an eternity, he collapses, sweating and completely out of breath. He crouches on the ground, complaining about how tired he is from running in circles. Defeated, he falls back, fearing he will be trapped in this strange place forever. Suddenly, he feels something crawling on his shoulder and sees a small purple scorpion. Panicked, he quickly throws the small creature off, yelling at it to stay away. The tiny scorpion lands on the ground, looking dazed and confused after being flung. But just as he feels a bit of relief, a giant, terrifying scorpion monster appears before him. His eyes go white with fear as he lets out a terrified scream at the sight of the beast. He immediately falls to the ground, paralyzed by shock and unable to move a muscle. The young man lies there, completely helpless and certain that his end has come. The giant monster stares down at him, seemingly confused by his sudden collapse. Just then, a woman with pink hair appears from the shadows, her face obscured. She calmly sits down on his back, pinning him to the ground without any effort. The woman then reveals her face, stating that the master said he wasn't allowed to run. She orders the small scorpion to take him back, and the little creature agrees. A moment later, he finds himself back at the mansion, with his boss sitting on top of him. He feels his soul leaving his body, completely convinced that he is already dead. The woman with blue hair just looks down at him, holding her pipe with a calm expression. He musters all his remaining strength and screams that he wants to quit his job. But she just smiles, reminding him that it's a stable, lifelong position and quitting is impossible. She lifts his chin with her pipe, telling him he will work this job forever and can never leave the valley. With a smug look, she calls it a minor punishment, warning she has 1,000 ways to make him behave. As she speaks, he imagines his other colleagues, like the pink-haired woman with her menacing snake. He also pictures the sword immortal, who looks dangerous while holding a knife between his teeth. Then he thinks of Pixinho, who smiles menacingly while holding her spiked mace. Finally, he remembers the demon empress, who glares coldly while holding dark purple flames in her hand. His boss whispers from behind that everyone is very kind, and he should just live well, but he is terrified. The system warns him that she is someone not to anger, and he cries, realizing he's truly trapped. A week later, the young man sits at his desk, seemingly resigned to his fate for now. He writes in his diary, complaining that his connection to the male lead role is non-existent. While writing, he recalls an incident involving his third junior brother, the Sword Immortal. The flashback shows the Sword Immortal practicing his skills on a rooftop 2 days ago. His eyes were filled with intense focus as he prepared to unleash a powerful move. He then swung his sword, creating a massive slash of purple energy across the sky. The swordsman continued his training, moving with impressive grace and power on the roof. After finishing his practice, he landed with a cool pose, surrounded by a purple aura. The Sword Immortal seemed very pleased with his performance, looking quite satisfied. But suddenly, a voice yelled at him to stop being so noisy, startling him completely. The protagonist had shouted from below, telling him the master wanted him to keep it down. He then warned his colleague that if he disturbed their boss's sleep, he would ascend right on the spot. The Sword Immortal gracefully lands on the ground, After the warning from his senior brother, he turns and apologizes, explaining that he was already holding back his power. With a confident smile, he adds that he was only using about 10% of his strength. He then explains that practicing swordsmanship requires persistence, otherwise he will regress. The protagonist is exasperated, thinking about how he's already undefeated as a half-god. With a serious expression, the Sword Immortal challenges his senior brother to a duel. The young man politely declines, saying he's just a civil engineer who can lift bricks but can't fight. His colleague refuses to believe this, shouting that it is impossible. He explains that in his past life, the senior brother was the master's powerful first disciple. To prove his point, the protagonist shows off his civil engineering books, insisting it's his expertise. He then stands proudly and says he was entrusted with a mission to take care of them all. He clarifies with a smug thumbs up that in layman's terms, he is basically a babysitter. The Sword Immortal is stunned, connecting babysitting and cleaning messes to having max abilities. Moved to tears, he praises his senior brother's humble demeanor and vows to be low-key like him. A system notification describes the Sword Immortal as a simple-minded genius with no life skills. The protagonist is shocked by how pure his colleague is, wondering if he spent his life just training. The young man agrees, stating that staying low-key is the best way to hide one's true abilities. He continues, explaining that this way, no one will see an attack coming when the time is right. The Sword Immortal enthusiastically agrees, saying being low-key lets you show off without notice. The protagonist is left speechless, wondering if all main characters have such peculiar thought processes. The Sword Immortal eagerly asks for more enlightening words, much to the protagonist's dismay. The young man wonders if the world has gone insane, since they are actually listening to his teachings. His colleague smiles and puts the civil engineering books away into an empty void. He then turns and asks his senior brother if the human world is a fun place to be. The Sword Immortal admits he has been practicing in the valley his whole life and wants to see the world. The protagonist considers the request, remembering the strict rules for cultivators in the human world. He then feels a halo appear over his colleague's head, realizing this must be the main character effect. Pondering the request, he weighs the pros and cons of taking his junior brother out. He knows that granting the wish would increase their familiarity and build a better rapport. He decides to bring it up the next day when he asks his master for leave to prepare for his graduation. If his boss agrees, he will set some ground rules to keep his colleague from using his powers. The scene then shifts, showing the master's hand tapping impatiently on her chair. She sits with her legs crossed, looking bored while waiting for something. Peixino is nearby, preparing a drink, when her boss asks if it's ready yet. The cat girl replies that it's almost done, needing at least 5 minutes of shaking for proper foam. Just then, a knock comes from the door, and the protagonist asks if he may come in. He calmly states his request to take leave to return to school for his thesis. The master grants him permission to enter, and he sees both her and Peixino inside. The cat girl presents her boss with a tall, sparkling drink, asking her to have a taste. He stands by, admiring the drink and commenting on his junior sister's extraordinary skills. He thinks to himself that the company is basically a queen surrounded by her loyal followers. His boss suddenly hands him a form, telling him to fill it out for his leave request. He's surprised by the formality, noting it's the first time he's felt like he works at a proper company. The woman with blue hair is pleased, as it is the first time someone has proactively requested leave. After filling out his form, he mentions that his junior brother asked to come to the city with him. He explains with a bright smile that the Sword Immortal has never left the mountain before. The master seems thoughtful, repeating that he's never left the mountain. Her expression suddenly turns cold and serious, making the room's atmosphere tense. Peixino also looks at him with a strange, unreadable expression on her face. The protagonist gets nervous, wondering if his colleague has some kind of major criminal record, but his boss simply tells him to help the Sword Immortal fill out a leave form as well. She then turns to Peixino, mentioning that her dad sent a message for her. The master explains that her father is asking her to come home and to go with her senior brother. The protagonist is shocked, recalling how Pixinho's dad had threatened to torture her. His boss continues, adding that the man claims he might be dying and wants a visit. The woman with blue hair tells the cat girl that the decision is hers and her family can't force her. Pixinho looks down, deep in thought for a moment before making her decision. With newfound determination, she announces she will go with him to find her mom. The master agrees to the plan and then turns back to the young man to finalize things. Relieved that everything is settled, he says he will be on his way, but she stops him. She hands him another document, a guardian's responsibility letter that he needs to sign. His boss warns that if anything happens to his companions, he will be held accountable. He reads the letter with a sinking feeling, thinking that he has just boarded a pirate ship. Sometime later, the Sword Immortal calls out to his companions, urging them to hurry up at the train station. The three of them walk through the busy station, pulling their luggage behind them. The Sword Immortal is especially excited, rushing ahead of the others with a big smile. The protagonist is suspicious, wondering how his colleague can be so comfortable if he's never left the valley. But the Sword Immortal explains that he learned everything by searching online, which the young man doubts. The group then boards a bullet train, which speeds through the lush green countryside. On the train, the protagonist and Pixinho sit together, both looking pensive. He peeks at her, remembering that the system said she hates her dad, but she seems worried about him. Deciding not to pry, he leans back and respects her silence, not wanting to ask any questions. The cat girl continues to stare out the window, her expression distant and unreadable. Finally, they arrive at their destination and step off the train onto the platform. Pixinho still looks somber as she turns and walks away from the train. The three of them walk together through the station, ready for what comes next. The Sword Immortal quietly tells the protagonist that his junior sister didn't sleep all night, but the young man shushes him, explaining that she needs some quiet time due to her family issues. Pixinho overhears them and says that for the longest time, she thought she was an orphan. Hearing this, the protagonist's imagination runs wild, fabricating a tragic backstory for her. Just as they exit the station, the Sword Immortal suddenly calls out to his senior brother, his eyes wide with amazement. He excitedly points at a sleek, black luxury car parked nearby, identifying it as a Bentley. But when the protagonist looks over, his jaw drops as he sees an entire fleet of identical luxury cars waiting for them. A massive fleet of identical black luxury cars is parked outside the station, creating an imposing and surreal scene. The protagonist is completely baffled by the sight, wondering if he has accidentally stumbled upon a movie set. The crowd around them murmurs in awe, speculating about who could possibly deserve such a ridiculously grand reception. He realizes it probably isn't a film shoot and starts to question if this is all really to pick someone up. His eyes then widen in shock as a sudden and unbelievable realization begins to dawn on him. A man in a sharp suit approaches Pixinho and bows respectfully, addressing her as the second miss. The man, Guanxi, then informs her that the eldest miss is waiting and wants to speak with her. Completely stunned, the protagonist realizes this entire extravagant display is for his junior sister, Yushen. Accepting the situation, she steels herself, deciding she might as well face them with a calm mind. Guanxi insists, urging her not to keep the eldest miss waiting for too long. Pixinho turns to her senior brother, explaining that a family matter has come up and she will contact him later. The suited man then turns and begins walking away, leading her towards the waiting cars. But the Sword Immortal steps forward, blocking the man's path and asking his junior sister if she needs help. She reassures him with a confident smile, insisting she can handle it herself and that they do not need to worry. Guanxi then gestures for her to follow him, leading the way to one of the luxury vehicles. She moves to get inside the car as her senior brothers watch on, unable to interfere. Inside, another woman with short blue hair is waiting for her, and Pixinho addresses her as Big Sister. The woman, Yuchuan, emotionlessly reveals their father was assassinated and is now in critical condition, wanting to see her. After hearing the grave news, Pixinho simply agrees to go with her older sister. The protagonist and the sword immortal can only watch as the car door closes and their companion is driven away. As the cars disappear, the sword immortal notes that his senior brother also seems to have noticed something. The protagonist agrees, stating that it is clear their junior sister does not have a good relationship with her family. He watches the convoy go, still surprised that she turned out to be the daughter of a wealthy merchant. Meanwhile, Pixinho sits in the car, thinking that big families like hers are full of schemes and backstabbing. Her colleague comments that big families are a pain, recalling how his cousin was once abandoned for being unable to cultivate. The young man realizes she had been deep in thought for the whole trip, and it must have been because of her family. Someone in the crowd recognizes the woman in the car as the chairwoman of Tmall Technology Group, a giant worth over 100 billion. Stunned, the protagonist wonders if it is the same massive tech company he is thinking of. At that moment, a system notification icon appears in his vision, drawing his attention to the sky. The holographic screen updates Yushin's profile, confirming she is the younger sister of Tmall's chairwoman. He stares at the new information, surprised by the confirmation of her family connections and troubled relationship. With their companion gone, the sword immortal turns to his senior brother and asks where they should go next. The protagonist suggests his colleague find a hotel near the university, mentioning that it is cheap and has food nearby. But he suddenly stops mid-sentence, a suspicious thought crossing his mind. He turns to his junior brother and asks if his character background also happens to include being a secret rich heir. The swordsman just laughs, reminding him that he is a transmigrator with no special skills besides fighting. He then gives his senior brother a cute hug to get his attention once more. With an awkward smile, the sword immortal admits that he left in such a hurry he forgot to bring any money. A system diagram appears, showing he has empty pockets, no ID, and a missing suitcase. The protagonist finally fumes, realizing why they were traveling so light, and that his colleague forgot everything. The protagonist panics, realizing that the hotel is very expensive and he is the one who has to pay. But then he has a sudden realization, remembering that he has not even received his salary for the month. His companion just stares at him with a blank expression, asking what a salary even is. The young man explains it is their wage, confirming the system's warning that his boss never pays on time. The swordsman nervously claims he was paid, making up an excuse about the finance department being closed. But he secretly thinks about how their master is scamming disciples again, glad he can finally complain in his head. The protagonist looks at him with suspicion, but his colleague insists that he is telling the truth. Still unconvinced, the young man decides to call his roommate to check on his living situation. He calls his friend Sun Sin, telling him that he is bringing someone over to stay for a while. The scene then shifts to the bustling university dormitory area where the protagonist lives. As soon as they arrive, a couple of girls walking by are immediately captivated by the sword immortal. They blush and comment on how incredibly cool he looks, unable to hide their admiration. The swordsman walks with effortless confidence, pulling a suitcase he somehow acquired along the way. He gives the swooning girls a charming wink, clearly enjoying all of the attention he is getting. His senior brother watches with an annoyed expression, complaining that main characters always get special treatment. Trying to bring him back to reality, he barks an order for his colleague to help with the luggage. As they walk through the dorm hallway, the young man explains that he has already arranged everything. He tells his junior brother that he can stay with him in the dorm for now since there is an empty bed. The sword immortal is thrilled with the idea, excited to experience college life for the very first time. The scene then cuts to later that night, with a digital clock on a bedside table showing 5 in the morning. The sword immortal floats in the air, having woken up early while his roommate is still fast asleep. He then gently shakes his senior brother, announcing that it is time for them to wake up and start training. Still half asleep, the young man grumbles that it is only 5 in the morning and they should still be sleeping. But his colleague insists that 5 is already late, explaining that the spiritual energy is purest between 4 and 5. Trying to be patient, the protagonist tells him to go back to sleep, reminding him of the rules against using his powers. The swordsman worries that if he does not train every day, he will surely fall behind the others. He continues to complain, saying that while others improve, he falls behind and will never become the strongest. The young man sighs, trying to reassure him that he will not fall behind at all if he just rests for one day. Still unconvinced, his colleague tries to argue, but the protagonist cuts him off with a firm tone. He tells his junior brother to stop making excuses and just go back to sleep so he can also rest. The youth also points out that floating in the air counts as using his abilities, which is against the rules. But the sword immortal refuses to give up, continuing to plead with his senior brother to wake up. With a sad expression, he explains that in the human world, he feels his energy intake is very low. The two of them stare at each other in silence, with the young man looking sleepy and his colleague looking desperate. A short time later, not much has changed in their standoff as they continue their silent battle of wills. The sword immortal looks at him with teary puppy eyes, while his senior brother struggles to stay awake. The young man finally gives in, frustrated that the situation feels like a dog waiting for its owner to take it out. Although annoyed by the early wake-up call, he agrees to train, though he has a mischievous look on his face. He tells his colleague that if he can't cultivate, they will just do some military boxing drills instead. The sword immortal is ecstatic, jumping for joy at the chance to do any kind of training with his senior brother. As the clock tower strikes 5, the day has officially begun for the two reluctant training partners. They head to an outdoor basketball court, the empty space serving as their makeshift training ground. The protagonist cries internally, lamenting his fate of having to wake up at 5 to practice military boxing. But his colleague is beaming with joy, telling his senior brother that he is the best for agreeing to this. The sword immortal then notices his companion's silence and strange, steaming aura. The young man is crying with a runny nose, feeling completely miserable about his current situation. But just as he is about to wallow in self-pity, a familiar system notification icon appears in his vision. The screen informs him that his familiarity with Yuan Yi has increased, and the favorability system is now active. His colleague's profile is updated, showing his favorability is now at 0.5, with a note about his training obsession. The system evaluates him as a pure-hearted genius with amazing swordsmanship but almost zero life skills. The protagonist is thrilled, realizing this means he can now use a small percentage of the peerless sword immortal's skills. He eagerly asks the system for confirmation, and it responds with a simple, "Wes, master." Overjoyed, he grabs his junior brother and enthusiastically promises to train with him every day at 5. The sword immortal is confused by the sudden change in attitude, wondering if his senior brother had an enlightenment moment. Later, the young man is at the cafeteria, eagerly ordering braised pork with extra meat to celebrate his new powers. The cafeteria lady just stares at him, taken aback by his loud and demanding order. His eyes sparkle as she scoops a generous serving of the delicious, looking braised pork onto a plate. But just as she is about to hand it to him, she suddenly changes her mind and smacks the pork down. He watches in horror as his perfectly cooked braised pork is turned into a messy pile of fried meat. Stunned and disappointed, he can only complain that what she did was not fair at all. The cafeteria lady yells at him to hurry up, and he reluctantly takes his ruined meal and moves on. But her expression immediately changes when she sees the next person in line, her eyes widening in surprise. The sword immortal smiles charmingly, holding a rose between his teeth as he asks what is on the menu. Flustered, the woman gives him a mountain of food, saying he is too skinny and needs to eat more. He thanks her with a smooth voice, telling her not to call him a young man but rather her dear. The protagonist is completely petrified by this display, feeling disgusted by his colleague's cheesy pick-up lines. While the young man has a sad, small portion, his companion enjoys a massive pile of delicious food. He fumes with jealousy, cursing the unfairness of the main character's special treatment. With his effortless charm and good looks, The sword immortal is a natural at winning over the ladies. The protagonist cries, feeling like a struggling worker, while his colleague lives a life of ease and luxury. Seeing his senior brother's distress, the swordsman offers him some of his food, but it only makes him feel worse. Later, they go to an arcade, where the sword immortal's amazing skills draw a crowd of impressed onlookers. Everyone is amazed by his speed and precision, saying he has the skills of a professional esports player. After their meal, the protagonist is so full he can barely walk, claiming it's the most he's ever eaten. He tells his junior brother to wander around on his own for the afternoon, as he has to prepare for his graduation thesis. The sword immortal agrees but asks for some essential human societal items to help him get by. The young man is confused, asking why he cannot just use mobile payment, since he does not have any cash. His companion reminds him that he is his caretaker and should be relied on for everything, including money. With a sigh of resignation, the protagonist hands him a 100 yuan bill, telling him to use it sparingly. He grumbles to himself, annoyed that spending 100 yuan on a meal suddenly does not feel so great anymore. The sword immortal thanks him with a bright smile, happily taking the money his senior brother gave him. Annoyed, the young man shoos him away, telling him to go and have fun while he gets back to his work. As soon as his senior brother is gone, the swordsman uses an app on his phone to book a ride for himself. A sleek, black car pulls up almost immediately, and he gets ready to hop inside for his adventure. With a graceful leap, he jumps into the car through the open window, showing off his impressive agility. The driver informs him of their destination and the estimated fare, which is 70 yuan for the trip. The sword immortal relaxes in the back seat, calmly telling the driver that he will be paying in cash. With everything settled, he eagerly tells the driver to head out, and the car speeds off down the road. Meanwhile, a bored-looking arcade owner sighs, complaining that there are no customers in his shop. But just then, the sword immortal walks in, getting the owner's attention as he approaches the counter. He confidently asks for 30 game coins, saying he wants to play the Dragon Slayer machine in the back. The owner tells him it will be 30 yuan and asks how he will pay, still looking uninterested. He grumbles that it's a hassle to open the machine for just a few minutes of play, but agrees to do it. The owner sighs, thinking that this kid seems completely clueless about how things work around here. But he sets up the machine anyway, telling the young man to just leave the coins on the machine when he is done. A little while later, the owner is surprised to see that the kid from earlier has not left yet. He peeks over and is shocked to see a huge crowd gathered around the Dragon Slayer machine. The crowd is in awe, commenting on the insane gameplay and the notorious difficulty of the game. The sword immortal plays with intense focus, his hands a blur as he expertly works the controls. The onlookers are amazed by his incredible speed and skill, comparing him to a professional esports player. The owner is in disbelief, knowing that hitting the jackpot requires a level of skill only pro gamers possess. But he reassures himself, confident that the machine is rigged and the kid will eventually lose everything. Moments later, the sword immortal is still playing, his focus completely unwavering as he dominates the game. The owner tries to distract him, suggesting he must be tired and hungry, but the swordsman ignores him. He continues to win, much to the owner's confusion and frustration, as he repeatedly says he is not tired. The sword immortal then smirks, telling the owner that he was just warming up and is ready to keep playing. Another moment passes, and the owner asks again if he is tired, but the answer is still a firm no. He tries a different approach, suggesting a break, but the young man once again says he is not tired. The owner gets desperate, insisting that he must be tired, but the swordsman calmly repeats his answer, losing his cool. The owner fumes, wondering how this is possible when he specifically rigged the machine to lose. He tries one last time, offering a drink as a truce, but the sword immortal is not interested in stopping. Just as the owner is about to give up, the game over screen flashes, and he lets out a sigh of relief. The sword immortal agrees that it is time for a break, and asks to exchange his coins for cash. The owner's face falls as he counts the massive pile of coins, realizing the total is 10,000 yuan. But the swordsman is not done yet, pointing to another pile of coins he has accumulated while playing. The owner is on the verge of tears as he announces the final total is 30,000 yuan, begging him not to come back. With a triumphant smile, the sword immortal takes his winnings and leaves the crying owner behind. He admires his new ring, a complimentary gift from the arcade, thinking about how easy life can be. Feeling generous, he decides to use his winnings to buy some snacks for his senior brother as a thank you. With his pockets full of cash, he stretches and decides to look for some other fun activities to do in the city. He spends his winnings on various activities like buying lollipops and making babies cry with his antics. He even joins a weightlifting competition at a gym, easily winning a fitness set with his superhuman strength. As the day ends, he reflects on how quickly time has passed and decides it is time to get some food. He arrives at a fancy restaurant, and a waitress immediately recognizes him, welcoming him as Mr. Yan. She asks if he would like to sit in the same scenic spot as his last visit, showing she is a regular customer. He agrees and eagerly asks her to introduce all the new items on the menu, ready for a feast. The waitress informs him that the head chef has recently launched a new series of premium dishes, but he cuts her off, saying he cannot understand the fancy names and just wants to try everything on the menu. She agrees and offers to store his belongings while he settles in at his table by the window. She then begins to serve the appetizers, and he watches her with a calm and composed expression. He sits alone at the table, surrounded by a lavish spread of delicious-looking food, but he seems lost in thought. He sips his wine, lamenting that not be able to practice swordsmanship makes him feel empty inside. The waitress approaches him, commenting that he has been out of sight for 2 months and must be busy with big deals. He dismisses her comment, stating that he has no love for money and that business deals are nothing compared to swordsmanship. After finishing his meal, he asks the waitress to pack up the leftovers for him to take home. She agrees, offering a complimentary dessert for his little partner as a thank you for his patronage. He then adds a large order of pancake rolls with 10 eggs to his takeaway, much to the waitress's surprise. He also orders some lamb kidneys and spicy intestines, saying his senior brother needs nourishment for his thesis. The waitress is a bit overwhelmed by the strange order, but takes it down, thinking he must have seen it on a TV show. Back at the dorm, the protagonist is hard at work on his thesis when his colleague returns with the food. The young man is annoyed, asking why his colleague is so late, but his words are cut short by the sight. The sword immortal stands at the door, loaded with shopping bags, and tells him to stop working and eat. He then thanks his senior brother, saying the 100 yuan was more than enough for his adventures. The protagonist is suspicious, remembering how his colleague claimed to have never left the mountain before. A system notification appears, showing that his familiarity with Yuan Yi has increased by another 5 points. The profile updates again, noting that his colleague is seemingly an all-rounder despite his claims. The protagonist complains to the system, asking why it keeps crossing out information and being so inaccurate. He lets out a frustrated sigh, feeling completely overwhelmed by the chaos of his new life. Just then, his roommate, Sun Sin, appears and playfully grabs him by the cheeks. With his thesis finally done, his roommate asks about his plans, and the protagonist mentions his new job. Sun Sin remembers the creative company name, Invincible, and comments on its aggressive culture. The young man confirms that he will be going back to work soon. Now that his studies are over, his roommate then points to all the luggage his new colleague has brought, asking if he plans to take it all. The protagonist feels a headache coming on, realizing he cannot handle the weight of his companion's main character aura. The scene then shifts to the train station, with the two of them waiting at the platform entrance. They stand in silence, waiting for their junior sister to arrive so they can all head back to the valley. The young man checks his phone, wondering why she is not there yet, as the train is about to depart. He looks around anxiously, worried that they might miss their train if she does not show up soon. The sword immortal suggests they head back first, assuming she has something to take care of at home. But the protagonist is still worried, explaining that she is not answering her phone or replying to his messages. He argues that they left together and should return together, worrying that such a cute girl might get lost on her own. Frustrated, he wonders why his caretaker trait has leveled up, knowing she has been in and out of the valley for years. He then realizes it must be the favorability system subconsciously pushing him to gain favor with his junior sister. His colleague is touched by his concern, exclaiming that his senior brother is a very kind and caring person. At that moment, another system notification appears, catching the protagonist's attention once again. The screen shows that his favorability and affection with Yu and Yai have both increased by 5 points. A congratulatory message appears, celebrating the host's achievement in strengthening his bond with his companion. The system then announces that since his affection level has reached 1, he can now use 20% of his colleague's skills. The protagonist is shocked by the sudden jump to 20%, a massive increase from before. He wonders if this means he now possesses real power, imagining the incredible abilities of the sword immortal. He pictures himself wielding a massive energy sword, effortlessly slicing through a giant boulder with ease. The system asks if he wants to try out his new skills, but he quickly declines, not wanting to cause a scene. Just then, his colleague points to a large screen on the wall, telling him to look at the news. Startled out of his thoughts, the protagonist turns to see what has caught his companion's attention. A news report is playing, showing their junior sister and her older sister at a press conference. Yu Qian announces that she will be taking over all operations of the group while their father recovers. She confidently states that as the current CEO, she will shoulder all the responsibilities of the company. She then introduces Yu Xin as her new executive assistant, falsely claiming she is a Columbia University graduate. The sword immortal points out that his junior sister does not look happy and seems to be forced into this situation. He then recalls hearing their master mention that small technology is part of the Spirit Cat clan's territory. The protagonist processes the new information, a serious expression on his face as he considers the implications. He declares that they need to find out what is going on and bring their junior sister back safe and sound. The scene then shifts to a luxurious office, with a world map hanging on the wall behind a large wooden desk. Yu Qian slams her hand down on the desk, angrily shouting her sister's name in frustration. She asks if the position of executive assistant is not big enough for her, clearly annoyed by her sister's attitude. The new CEO yells at her, accusing her of disrespecting her at the press conference and offering her own chair. Paik Sinho looks away, quietly saying that she did not mean to cause any trouble or show any disrespect. But her sister is not convinced, demanding to know what she meant by her sullen expression during the announcement. She cruelly reminds her that she is just an illegitimate daughter and needs to remember her place in the family. Yu Qian continues her verbal assault, saying that the new position is a grace bestowed upon her while their father is sick. She tells her sister to at least act happy about it, or she will be demoted to a cleaner's position. Paik Sinho remains silent, her back turned to her sister, as she struggles to find the right words to say. She finally speaks, her voice filled with emotion as she says that all she wants is to see her mother. Her sister scoffs at the request, asking if she wants to learn how to seduce men from her mother. She continues to insult her, suggesting she wants to learn how to climb the ladder as a mistress. Paik Sinho tries to defend her mother, but her words are cut short by her sister's cruel remarks. Yu Qian yells at her, calling her a bastard and a child of a concubine, questioning her status in the family. She reminds her that as the legitimate eldest daughter, even speaking to her is a great compromise on her part. She coldly tells her to just consider her mother dead, as she has lived without her for years in the valley. Paik Sinho finally snaps, reminding her sister that she promised to protect her mother in exchange for her leaving the clan. She continues to argue, saying she just wants to confirm her mother's condition now that she has been summoned back. Her sister's eyes narrow, and she coldly admits that there is nothing wrong with her request. But she warns that if her true identity is exposed and tarnishes the family's reputation, there will be consequences. With a sinister smile, She threatens that she cannot guarantee the elders will not kill her mother in that case. An ashtray sits on the desk, a silent witness to the tense and emotionally charged conversation between the two sisters. Yuchien takes a cigarette, her expression serious as she tells her sister to listen carefully to what she is about to say. She states that no matter what her past identity was, from this moment on, things are going to change. Tapping her cigarette on the ashtray, she declares that Pixinho is now officially her younger sister. She creates a false narrative, claiming her sister has been studying abroad and their family is a harmonious one. This, she explains, is the public image of the small group, and they must maintain it at all costs. She then warns her sister that if she sees that defeated look on her face again, she will be collecting her mother's corpse. Defeated, Pixinho falls to her knees, completely overwhelmed by her sister's cruel threats and manipulations. With tears in her eyes, she begs her sister, reminding her that she has not seen her mother in over 10 years. She promises not to cause any trouble, saying she just needs to know that her mother is okay. She vows to listen to whatever her sister says and work hard without any complaints if she can just see her mother. But Yu Qian is unmoved, calling her trash and mocking her for kneeling and groveling without dignity. She reminds her that the second miss of the Yu family would never act in such a disgraceful manner. With a cold and dismissive tone, she tells her sister to smile, questioning why she looks so miserable. Just as the tension reaches its peak, a man appears at the door, interrupting their heated argument. The man, Secretary Wrong Way, apologizes for the interruption, his expression serious and professional. Yu Qian dismisses his apology, telling him to come in and get straight to the point. She then turns to her sister, her tone softening as she tells her to stop kneeling and that her apology is sincere. The secretary places a thick document on the desk, explaining that it is the will drafted according to their father's wishes. The new CEO scoffs as she reads the will, questioning why an illegitimate child is entitled to 5% of the inheritance. She then makes a snide remark about their father's generosity, implying that being a mistress pays off well. The secretary then asks for a convenient time to report on the situation with the Goldman Group. Yu Qian dismisses her sister, telling her to remember her advice, and that she is free to leave now. Pixinho stands alone in the hallway, looking lost and defeated after the humiliating encounter with her sister. She calls out to the secretary, addressing him as Uncle Wrong Way, her voice filled with desperation. With a pleading look in her eyes, she asks him if he can take her to see her mother. He apologizes, explaining that he does not have the authority to grant her request and that no one can see her mother. He advises her to give up on the idea and settle into her new role as the second miss of the Yu family. She then asks if he knows if her mother is doing okay, her voice trembling with worry and concern. The secretary hesitates for a moment before starting to explain her mother's situation, but he does not finish. He lets out a heavy sigh as he walks away, leaving her alone in the hallway with her unanswered questions. As he leaves, a small, intricate device falls from her stocking, unnoticed by either of them. The young woman collapses to the floor, her body and spirit completely broken by the events of the day. Meanwhile, the protagonist and his colleague have arrived at the Tamal Technology building, asking to see Yu Xin. The receptionist politely informs them that they need an appointment to see the executive assistant. The Sword Immortal calmly asks her to inform Yu Xin that two of her friends, surnamed Yuan and Yan, are here to see her. The receptionist, however, remains firm, repeating that they cannot receive visitors without an appointment. The Sword Immortal gets frustrated, insisting that she just needs to tell her that they are here. But the receptionist calmly repeats her line, telling him to make an appointment if he wishes to see her. He hangs his head in defeat, completely exasperated by the receptionist's robotic and unhelpful responses. He angrily questions if she is a parrot, annoyed that she keeps repeating the same two lines over and over. As his frustration mounts, he reaches for his sword, ready to force his way into the building. But the protagonist quickly stops him, telling him not to be rash and to calm down before he does something stupid. He reminds his colleague that they are not in the valley, and cannot use their powers freely in the human world. The Sword Immortal is surprised by his senior brother's strength, questioning his claim of lacking talent. The protagonist just smiles as a system notification appears, showing a small increase in favorability. He then sees a strange, holographic display in front of him, but he cannot quite make out what it says. Annoyed by the weird expression on his senior brother's face, he asks why he is staring at him like that. Just then, another man in a suit approaches the reception desk, asking to see President Mew. The receptionist asks him the same question, wanting to know if he has an appointment with the president. The man says he does not have one, but the receptionist's attitude completely changes, and she agrees to let him in. The Sword Immortal is furious, questioning why the other man can go up without an appointment while he cannot. The receptionist explains, if they allowed just anyone to enter, they would not need a receptionist in the first place. The protagonist tries to calm his fuming companion, telling him not to get mad over such a small thing, but the swordsman is convinced the receptionist rolled her eyes at him, asking his senior brother for confirmation. The young man tries to de-escalate the situation, suggesting they do not stoop to her level and try calling again. Watching from afar, the receptionist scoffs, thinking that the protagonist is really good at pretending to be calm. Just as the argument escalates, Pixinho appears, and the receptionist quickly changes her tune, greeting her respectfully. The protagonist asks her what is going on, and if she is really staying at the Tamal group as an assistant. The Sword Immortal also questions her decision, reminding her that she is supposed to be returning to the valley with them. He worries about their master, wondering who will take care of her if she is not there to serve her. She explains that she has her reasons for staying, her expression serious and her resolve unwavering. The protagonist offers to help, suggesting that they might be able to solve her problems together. But she remains silent, her gaze distant, as she seems to be lost in her own thoughts and worries. As they sit at an outdoor cafe, two women walk by and recognize Pixinho as the second miss of the Tamal group. One of them whispers to the other, sharing gossip that she is actually an illegitimate child and her mother was a mistress. They then point to her companions, using their presence as confirmation of the rumors and her scandalous behavior. The Sword Immortal's eyes glow with red anger, annoyed that everyone seems to be trying to piss him off today. He reaches for his sword, ready to silence the gossiping woman who dare to disrespect his junior sister. But the protagonist stops him once again, reminding him of the rules and telling him not to act rashly. The swordsman is furious, wanting to tear their filthy mouths apart for spreading such vicious lies. His senior brother reminds him that modern society is governed by law, and he could end up in jail for his actions. The Sword Immortal questions if his senior brother can just endure this blatant disrespect and do nothing about it. The protagonist firmly states that he cannot, a determined look on his face as he prepares to handle the situation. He tells his colleague to sit down, advising him not to argue with fools or compete with dwarfs. The swordsman continues to fume, insisting that their junior sister is not what they are saying, and he will not stand for it. The protagonist gently pushes his colleague's hand down, telling him to sit and let him handle the situation. Reluctantly, the Sword Immortal agrees, taking a seat with his arms crossed, still looking annoyed. Just as the protagonist is about to speak, their junior sister quietly interrupts, her voice filled with sadness. She confesses that the rumors are true and that she is, in fact, the child of a mistress. The Sword Immortal is shocked by her confession, his eyes widening in disbelief as he tries to process the news. She explains that she has been feeling uneasy lately, worried that something might have happened to her mother. With tears in her eyes, she tells them to go back without her, as she needs to find her mother. The protagonist then excuses himself, saying he needs to make a quick phone call. Leaving his companions confused, he walks a short distance away, his back turned to them, as he makes the important call to their master. After a few moments, he returns to the table, announcing that he has just spoken with their boss on the phone. He explains that he told her he was staying to take care of something, and she granted him leave without any questions. He then adds that their master specifically told him to take good care of their junior sister while they are away. With a reassuring smile, he tells her that since he has a lot to handle at the school, he will stay and help her. The sword immortal is moved to tears by his senior brother's kindness, exclaiming that he is a truly good person. Pixinho is also touched, thinking that he deliberately made up an excuse to ease her burden and help her. As the protagonist stands with his back to them, 2 system notifications appear, signaling a change in his status. The screens show that both of his companions now see him as a helpful and chivalrous senior brother. He is thrilled by the easy points, thinking that he needs to keep it up and strike while the iron is hot. He confidently states that taking care of them is his duty and that he will do his best to help with any problem. His 2 companions look at him with admiration, their eyes sparkling with gratitude and respect for their reliable senior brother. In that moment, he appears as a divine figure to his companions, a radiant savior in their time of need. The system reflects their admiration, showing a significant increase in both favorability and affection from them. He sheds tears of joy, finding the experience of grinding for points to be incredibly satisfying. The system updates their junior sister's profile, revealing that her mother has been imprisoned by the Yu family. The protagonist is shocked by this new information, realizing the gravity of her situation and her longing for familial love. A new notification then appears, announcing that the affection system for Yu Xin has been unlocked. He is confused as a strange, pink aura surrounds him, a power he has never felt before. His 2 companions suddenly look at him with adoration, their expressions filled with a newfound and intense affection. He questions their strange behavior, but they seem to be in a daze, completely captivated by his presence. Pixinho blushes, telling him that for some reason, he is looking more and more pleasing to the eye. He laughs nervously, flattered by the compliment, but also a bit creeped out by their sudden change in attitude. He proudly thinks to himself that his heartfelt words have truly moved them. Completely unaware of the real reason, the sword immortal then gets uncomfortably close, his eyes filled with a strange and intense longing. He compliments his senior brother's chest muscles, his voice filled with an admiration that is a bit too much. The protagonist is completely freaked out by this, yelling at him to back off and questioning what he is doing. The system then informs him that he is passively using Yu Xin's charm ability, which affects everyone around him. He screams in frustration, annoyed that the skill does not even differentiate between genders and affects everyone. The scene then shifts to the bustling cityscape, with towering skyscrapers reaching towards the sky. Inside the small technology building, Pixinho is being treated like a glorified errand girl by the other employees. They order her around with condescending tones, making her do menial tasks like picking up packages and shredding documents. Despite being overwhelmed with tasks, she maintains a composed demeanor, agreeing to every request. She rushes around the office, trying to keep up with the constant demands of her condescending colleagues. At the end of the day, she is completely exhausted, letting out a heavy sigh as she tries to catch her breath. Another colleague then approaches her, asking her to make a pot of tea for an urgent meeting with the leaders. She tries to explain that she is already overloaded with tasks, but her words are drowned out by his demands. He mocks her, saying that as the CEO's assistant, she should be able to handle it, and he is just a lowly employee. With a defeated look, she agrees to make the tea, not wanting to cause any more trouble for herself. She thinks back to the conversation she had with her senior brothers, remembering the plan they came up with. The protagonist had advised her to take on every task without complaint, no matter how hard they try to make things for her. He explained that they need to let her sister think she has her under control so they can make their move later. With a newfound resolve, she had agreed to endure the mistreatment, determined to see their plan through to the end. The sword immortal then offered his support, holding up a beginner's guide to surviving the workplace. With a proud smile, they both cheered her on, promising to support her mentally and encouraging her to keep up the good work. She stands in the office, her back to the camera, a solitary figure in the vast and intimidating corporate world. She thinks about how hard her senior brothers have been working for the past 2 weeks to help her with her mission. They even rented an apartment across from the small group's office to keep an eye on her sister's movements. The landlady had offered them a sister to keep them company, but the Sword Immortal had politely declined. From their new vantage point, they have a perfect view of the small group, ensuring her sister cannot escape their surveillance. As the protagonist stands in the apartment, a familiar system notification icon appears in his vision once again. The screen shows a small increase in his affection level with Yu Shin, a sign that their plan is working. He wonders what he did to gain her affection, completely oblivious to the impact of his recent actions. Just then, his colleague calls out to him, his eye glued to a pair of binoculars as he watches the building across the street. He excitedly announces that Yu Qian is moving alone again, a prime opportunity for them to follow her. He suggests they follow her today, eager to uncover the secrets she is hiding from them. The protagonist agrees, his expression serious as he gets ready to tail her and find out what she is up to. They follow her to a luxurious villa on the outskirts of the city, the property surrounded by a high fence and tight security. Hiding in the bushes, they watch as she enters the heavily guarded estate, their suspicions growing with every moment. The Sword Immortal notes that the villa is surrounded by a powerful barrier, a sign that something is not right. He speculates that it might be a special area designated by the Cultivator Association, which would explain the high security. Yu Qian gracefully steps out of her car, her elegant and composed demeanor a stark contrast to the secrets she is hiding. She walks towards the villa with a confident stride, completely unaware that she is being watched from a distance. The two companions are intrigued by this new development, their minds racing as they try to piece together the puzzle. The Sword Immortal finds it suspicious that a CEO of a major corporation would visit a suburban villa so frequently. The protagonist adds that since the area is designated by the Cultivator Association, the security must be top-notch. They sit in the grass, observing the villa and trying to come up with a plan to get inside without being detected. The Sword Immortal suggests just slashing the barrier with his sword, a simple but risky solution to their problem. His senior brother sarcastically agrees, and the swordsman gets excited, ready to put his plan into action. But the protagonist stops him, asking what would happen if he accidentally injured their junior sister's mother. Just as he is about to act, a red car speeds away from the villa, and they decide to wait and see what happens next. The protagonist notes that she stayed for 3 hours again, a consistent pattern that only deepens their suspicions. They are convinced that the villa holds major clues to their junior sister's situation and her mother's whereabouts. The protagonist suggests they come back on the weekend when she is off work, so they can investigate more thoroughly. The Sword Immortal jokes that it is a good thing her family does not run a bootleg online shop, or she would never have weekends off. But he suddenly stops, his expression turning serious as he senses another presence nearby. The protagonist is alarmed, asking if they are being followed, his eyes scanning their surroundings for any sign of danger. The Sword Immortal instinctively reaches for his sword, his hand resting on the hilt as he prepares for a potential fight. He confidently states that since they are near a special area, it is fine to use their abilities, and he will take care of it. But just as quickly as it appeared, the presence disappears, leaving him feeling frustrated that it escaped. The protagonist speculates that they were either followed, or someone else is also tracking Yu Qian. The Sword Immortal agrees, concluding that the villa is definitely not an ordinary place and holds many secrets. They look at the heavily guarded estate, their determination to uncover the truth growing stronger with each passing moment. The guards at the gate report that everything is clear, completely unaware of the two figures hiding in the bushes nearby. The security team stands vigilant, their imposing presence a clear warning to any potential intruders. A few days later, the three of them are back, hiding in the bushes and observing the villa once again. Pixino is surprised to learn that her family has a designated area in the suburbs of the city. The protagonist explains that he and his colleague have been staking out the place and have found a hidden path. With their plan in place, he declares that it is finally time for them to act and uncover the truth. They stealthily make their way towards the villa, using the trees and bushes as cover to avoid being seen. One of the guards gets a call, asking what is happening on his side, but he is unaware of their presence. While the guard is distracted, they use their teamwork to scale the wall, confident that they can get in undetected. They sneak inside the villa and start searching for clues, checking every nook and cranny for anything suspicious. They meticulously search the bedroom, but find nothing out of the ordinary, just a neatly made bed and some books. As they continue their search, they narrowly avoid being caught by a guard, hiding behind a piece of furniture. After a while, they are forced to hide behind a tree as the guards make their rounds, their hearts pounding in their chests. The Sword Immortal expresses his frustration, stating that they have searched almost the entire villa and found nothing. Pixinho starts to doubt their mission, wondering if her sister just comes here for work and they are overthinking it. But their conversation is cut short as they are suddenly discovered by a group of guards who demand to know who they are. The Sword Immortal quickly comes up with an excuse, nervously claiming that they got lost while looking for the restroom. Pixinho then uses her charm ability, striking a captivating pose that immediately mesmerizes the guards. They are completely smitten, their hearts pounding as they stare at her in awe, calling her beautiful. She continues to dazzle them with her charm, and they are completely under her spell, unable to resist her allure. The guards are so dazed that they collapse to the ground, happily pointing her in the direction of the restroom. With the guards neutralized, she stands over one of them, a triumphant look on her face as she celebrates their victory. But their victory is short-lived as another guard spots them, pointing in their direction and alerting the others. Without hesitation, she unleashes a powerful attack, a wave of energy that knocks the guards off their feet. The Sword Immortal then joins the fight, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword as he prepares to strike. He swiftly draws his sword and delivers a powerful blow, knocking the guard unconscious with a single hit. With the guards defeated, he stands tall, his sword in hand, a look of determination on his face. The protagonist watches from the sidelines, feeling completely useless and wondering why he is even there. Pixinho suggests they move the unconscious guards to a corner, so they can continue their search undisturbed. The protagonist suggests hiding them in the trees, a simple but effective way to keep them out of sight. He then gracefully leaps into the tree, showing off his newfound agility as he prepares to hide the guards. The Sword Immortal is impressed, but questions why his senior brother is bothering with such small tasks. The young man just smiles, saying he wants to have a sense of involvement and feel useful to the team. A system notification then appears, showing a small increase in affection from both of his companions. With the guards safely hidden in the trees, they continue their search, determined to find some clues. They sneak around the villa, but the Sword Immortal complains that the place does not seem unusual at all. The protagonist urges him to keep looking, suggesting there might be a hidden passage or secret room. But their search is cut short as they hear the sound of a car approaching, and they realize Yu Qian is coming. She steps out of her car, her heel clicking on the pavement, as she makes her way towards the villa. She looks around, a suspicious expression on her face, as she senses that something is not right. She then yells at her remaining guards, berating them for not noticing the absence of more than a dozen of their colleagues. The guards are shocked, claiming that there has not been any commotion inside the villa and everything is fine. She orders them to stay on high alert and thoroughly search the villa for any intruders, leaving no corner unchecked. The guards immediately comply, spreading out to search the property as she watches them with a stern expression. From their hiding spot on the roof, the three companions watch as the guards begin their search. They start to panic, realizing that they will be discovered soon if they do not find a better hiding place. The Sword Immortal suggests slashing the place with his sword, but the protagonist tells him not to rush into a fight. He can already hear footsteps approaching, and they need to think of a plan quickly before they are caught. The protagonist tells them to stick with him, advising them to stay calm, and that they can always resort to violence later. As the guards rush up the stairs, the three companions find themselves trapped in a room with no way out. The guards are shocked by what they see, their eyes widening in disbelief at the strange sight before them. Instead of the intruders, they find a room filled with plaster statues, each one striking a different pose. One of the guards is confused, questioning if the room always had these statues, as he does not remember them. He gets a strange feeling from one of the statues, a sense of unease that he cannot quite explain. The three companions are actually disguised as the statues, their bodies perfectly still as they try to blend in. The protagonist is concentrating hard, using his newly acquired skills to create an overlapping illusion. The guard who checked the room reports that it is clear, completely fooled by the clever disguise. The protagonist is relieved as the system confirms that his charm and protagonist aura skills have been activated. He wonders if this counts as creating a new skill, a testament to his growing power and ingenuity. The sword immortal is impressed, praising his senior brother for being a master of trickery and deception. Peixinho is also thrilled, exclaiming that they finally have a reliable senior brother they can count on. The guards report back to their boss, confirming that no intruders were found in the first 3 sections of the villa. They mention that intruders were found in the 4th section, but have already escaped, much to her annoyance. Unconvinced, she decides to check the place herself, her sharp instincts telling her that something is not right. She heads to the room where the statues are, questioning if it has been thoroughly checked by her guards. She accuses one of the guards of slacking off, but he quickly denies it, his face filled with fear. The 3 companions start to panic, realizing that there is no escape this time, and they are about to be caught. Just as Yu Qian is about to enter the room, her stomach rumbles, a sudden and unexpected interruption. Her phone then rings, and she sees that it is her master calling, a call that she cannot ignore. She wonders why her master is calling her, a sense of unease washing over her as she prepares to answer. She steps into a private room to take the call, her expression serious as she greets her master. She asks why Aunt Ning has suddenly found the time to call her, her voice filled with a mixture of respect and fear. Her master, sitting at an outdoor cafe, calmly states that she has seen the news about the recent press conference. She reminds Yu Qian that Yu Xin is a disciple of the Wujian Valley and is under her direct protection. She then questions her decision to allow her to join Tmall Technologies, her tones sharp and accusatory. Yu Qian starts to sweat, her voice trembling as she tries to come up with a convincing explanation. She explains that it was because her father was assassinated and is now seriously injured. She continues to explain the situation, her voice filled with a sense of urgency and desperation. But her master is not impressed, questioning why she would place her disciple in the company to do menial tasks. Yu Qian is furious, realizing that her sister has reported her to their master, a betrayal she did not expect. Her master's voice turns cold as she asks what Yu Xin means to her, a question that hangs heavy in the air. The young CEO is surrounded by her guards, but she feels completely alone and vulnerable under her master's scrutiny. She reluctantly admits that Yu Xin is her direct disciple, her voice barely a whisper as she speaks the words. Her master then asks about the status of a direct disciple, her voice filled with a menacing tone. Yu Qian's eyes widen in fear as she stammers, struggling to find the right words to answer the question. She finally admits that a direct disciple is second to none, a status that is above all others in the valley. Her master then informs her that she is currently in City C and would like her little disciple to accompany her for a chat. The call ends abruptly, leaving Yu Qian in a state of shock and fear as she tries to process what just happened. She wonders if her master came all this way just for Yu Xin, a thought that sends a shiver down her spine. She mutters to herself, annoyed by how lucky the daughter of the mistress is to have such powerful protection. Meanwhile, their master relaxes at the cafe, commenting on how well the protagonist is playing his nanny role. It is then revealed that the protagonist had anticipated this and coordinated with his master to make the call at the right time. The master stands up, a confident and regal air about her as she prepares to continue with their plan. She looks out at the bustling city, wondering what she should do for fun while she is in town. Back at the villa, Yuchien orders her guards to continue searching while she heads to the study room. From their hiding spot, the three companions watch her go, wondering what she is up to in the study. Pixinho is relieved, realizing that their master's call came at the perfect time, and they are safe for now. The protagonist speculates that she has gone to consult someone, as she seemed to care deeply about what their master said. The sword immortal touches his senior brother's hair, noting that she did not leave immediately after the call. The protagonist deduces that there must be someone important still in the villa, which is why she is staying. The sword immortal asks how he knew their master would call, impressed by his senior brother's foresight. The protagonist explains that he knew her sister would be suspicious if she did not take the call from their master. He had anticipated her reaction and had their master call at the perfect moment to allay her suspicions. His two companions are in awe of his amazing foresight and brilliant planning, their admiration for him growing even more. The system once again reflects their increased favorability and affection, a testament to his successful plan. The protagonist feels a surge of pride, his nose growing long like Pinocchio, as he basks in their admiration. He speculates that their master probably made up an excuse to cover for them, but must have said something else as well. He notes that Yu Qian's reaction was excessively nervous for someone who is the CEO and a princess of the Spirit Cat clan. The sword immortal whispers that since he is new, he does not know how incredible their master truly is. Peixinho whispers to the protagonist, intrigued by the mention of their mysterious and powerful master. She teases him, saying he has probably heard the legends about their master's incredible abilities. The sword immortal asks what their next move is, and she explains that they will have to wait for at least an hour. Suddenly, they are startled by a new presence, a fourth person who has somehow managed to sneak into the villa. The sword immortal is shocked, his eyes widening in disbelief as he realizes he did not even notice them. They all turn to face the intruder, a sense of familiarity washing over them as they recognize the aura. The intruder makes a hand sign, a red aura surrounding them as they prepare to reveal their identity. The three companions are on high alert, their bodies tense as they prepare for a potential confrontation. The intruder is revealed to be Secretary Wrongway, who has used an artifact to sneak in undetected. The sword immortal is relieved that his senses have not weakened, attributing his failure to the powerful artifact. Peixinho is surprised to see him, her voice filled with a mixture of shock and relief as she calls out his name. The protagonist is confused, asking how she knows the intruder, and she explains his connection to her sister. The secretary has a stern expression on his face, but his eyes soften as he looks at the young woman. The protagonist recognizes him as the person who was spying on them before, but his behavior seems suspicious. The secretary tells them they are causing a scene by intruding, and that they should leave immediately. He warns them that if her sister finds them, the consequences will be unimaginable for all of them. Pixinho then notices that the study seems quiet, and she can no longer feel her sister's aura. The sword immortal closes his eyes, concentrating as he tries to sense her presence in the room. He confirms that she did enter the study, but her aura has completely disappeared, a puzzling development. The protagonist is deep in thought, a serious expression on his face as he tries to understand what is happening. He concludes that the study must hold some hidden secrets, and they need to investigate it immediately, but the secretary vehemently disagrees, calling their plan ridiculous and completely out of the question. He insists that they must leave the villa at once, his voice filled with a sense of urgency and concern. The protagonist just smiles, questioning why he is hiding there if not for the same reason as them.